It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker. Christina Djossa is a New York Times award-winning writer and audio producer who has covered an incredible array of topics, including gay referees in Brazil, inclusivity in national parks, and beached whale dissection, just to name a few. After graduating from Williston, Christina earned her BA from the George Washington University in International Development and Japanese Language and Culture, and she also studied abroad at Waseda University in Japan. Recently, she made the switch to produce the hugely popular Modern Love podcast, which is about to debut, I believe. So you can all get some advice after this from her on any issues about modern love. We're so grateful to her for returning to her alma mater to be with us as we celebrate the start of the year. So please give a warm Williston welcome home to Christina.
All right, let's just get this one thing out the way. High school is a little wild. And by a little wild, I mean it's like being in a game where the rules change every week. And here you are, whether you're a freshman or a senior, just trying to figure out where your first class is or where you fit in this year. And look, I've been there too, because I remember when I first started at Williston, I didn't know how to use my mailbox for the first month. I kept waiting for the opportunity to unlock it when no one was looking. And then early one morning, on a Saturday, I went to the Reed Center and stood there and still did not get my mailbox open like 4 times. Even when the 5th time worked, I ran away with my mail because I didn't want to find out if anyone had seen me failing at something so simple. And if you think moments like that end after your freshman year, think again, because I remember my junior year, someone asked me to watch the horror movie Saw. I didn't want to admit that I hadn't seen it, and I basically hadn't seen any horror movies in my life. So I was like, oh yeah, I love Saw, I've seen them all. Then a few days later, my friends were marathoning the Saw movies in the common room, and I had to pretend I was super into it, when I was secretly dying inside because it was my first actual horror movie. So there were tons of times it felt like everyone else had it together and I was just trying to keep up. But here's the thing. Everyone, and I mean everyone, feels like they're failing at the Williston game sometimes. So if you're sitting at the stew bop feeling like, am I doing this right? The answer is yes, because Williston is all about figuring out things as you go. Everyone around you is simultaneously trying to blend in and stand out like, yes, I want to be noticed, but not like that. But here's the thing. Who you are right now might not be who you are tomorrow. And that's okay. I used to think that I had to figure out who I was by the end of Williston, like there was some kind of deadline. And there is no deadline. You're allowed to evolve. And that's part of the fun, getting to try on different versions of yourself until you find the one that fits best. Or, at least until you figure out that neon green isn't your color. And trust me on that one. And by the way, if you do feel like you've hit your final form, I'm impressed, but I also don't believe you. Life is weird and everyone gets thrown curveballs, so you may have a bit more evolving to do. So while you're figuring that out, my first piece of advice is find your safe space at Williston. And by safe space, I don't mean literal space, though it can be part of it. It's more about finding something that makes you feel like you can breathe easy, like you didn't even realize you were holding your breath before. And for some of you, that might be a specific room, like the theater or the soccer field or the library or your bedroom. Or maybe it's not a room. Maybe it's a group chat with friends, or an online community where you can be your real self. For me, it was the dance studio, being with other students of color. The ancestors did not bless me with the skill of learning choreo, but I love sitting against the mirror and watching my friends dance battle each other. And another was chatting with Robin on stir fry night about what she and the dining staff cooked up that night, and laughing with friends at the self-proclaimed black and brown table. It was watching Naruto at Ford Hall and listening to indie music in Mem Hall that would make Billie Eilish cry. If you haven't found that place yet, don't worry, it exists. And for now, if your safe space is chilling in between classes in the bathroom, I'm not here to judge. We all need a break sometimes. Now, let's come back to this whole authentic self thing, the one I was trying to find on a deadline. Again, you're not going to figure it out completely right now. If you get to the end of high school and you still feel kind of lost, congratulations. You're like everyone else. But finding those places and times where you feel at ease is going to lead you towards a more genuine, self-actualized, and fulfilled version of yourself. I'll give you an example. At Williston, I thought I had to fit into a box to conform to what I thought I was supposed to be. I never thought I was enough. I wasn't smart enough, black enough, light-skinned enough, creative enough, so I changed how I talked and dressed and suppressed what made me, me. So it took me a minute to realize what genuinely excites me. One of those exciting moments was in Mr. Chu's biology class. We were all assigned to read a science fiction book, and I got Andromeda Strain by Michael Crichton. I brought it with me to a track meet at Westfield Academy and read the entire thing in one sitting. It was at that moment that I discovered my love for science fiction. Another moment was in Miss Clump's World Civilizations class, where we created skits to reenact the Ramayana, which made me realize how much I love learning about communities and societies outside of my own. I remember thinking that one day I wanted to find ways to bridge different cultures together, and hopefully through stories. Those moments changed everything. They made me realize that being true to myself wasn't always about seeming right to other people, but about following what felt right for me. And I know the idea of being yourself is something you've heard before, probably since you were in preschool. But I want you to hear something a little bit different this time. Adults do not automatically learn how to be themselves. Some people you know, maybe your siblings or your best friends, will force themselves to talk and dress and act a certain way so hard that they start to feel completely disconnected from how they act. They will no longer be able to discover that they love sci-fi or journalism because the story that they've made up about being someone who doesn't like those things is too loud. When you start figuring out what's authentic for you, you can start chasing the things that light you up, that make you feel alive. You'll naturally start gravitating towards opportunities that are perfect for you. And that's what's gonna make your life amazing. When I left Williston, it took a while to find those perfect opportunities. But the more I chased the things that lit me up, the more my professional and personal life started to crystallize. That interest in bridging cultures together, which I formed during World Civilizations class, sparked my desire to study abroad in college. I spent a year living in Tokyo, Japan, studying international affairs at Waseda University, and meeting people who became some of my closest friends, friends who didn't even blink an eye when I tried to get them into horror. It wasn't always easy. Being in a different country pushed me out of my comfort zone and forced me to learn quickly, and reminded me that I still had so much to figure out. But those experiences abroad opened doors I hadn't even considered. They led me to a Princeton and Asia Fellowship in Nepal, where I worked on education and development programs, helping to tell the stories of communities that had long been overlooked. That desire to bridge cultures and share stories became the thread that tied my professional journey together. Whether it was reporting on race in America at WNYC, uncovering hidden histories and science at Atlas Obscura, or producing stories about love and vulnerability on the Modern Love podcast at the New York Times. Every step of the way, I was following that spark, the people or things that made me feel alive, even when I wasn't even entirely sure where it would take me. Through all of these experiences, one thing stayed the same. I was always learning. Life is about embracing the unknown, growing through it, and trusting what excites you will guide you forward. So, as you head into this new school year, remember this. It's okay to feel out of place. It's okay to be wrong about the rules of the game today. Instead of trying to hit an I know myself deadline, find your safe space. And when something gets you really excited, pay attention to that thing. High school is just one chapter in your story, and it's not about having all the answers. It's about staying curious and open to what comes next. And who knows? Maybe by the end of the year, you'll look back and laugh at what stressed you out today, like sprinting away from your mailbox. Or maybe you still won't be able to quite unlock it on the first try. And that's okay too. And if you do figure out how to navigate this whole high school thing with 0 awkward moments, let me know. I could use a few tips. Thank you.